Hey, what's going on, CoinOpTV subscribers? Robert Welkin here with another CoinOpTV live and interactive on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/CoinOpTV. It's been a while since we've done a topic about Disney Infinity, but it's December. We're getting sort of at the end of the year here, and I thought let's do like a nice little fun send-off episode for Disney Infinity. And the topic is going to be, Disney Infinity could have been, should have been a top 5 figures list with special guests Infinity Adventures. Now, this gentleman here is my co-host. You're going to hear his audio only. When I show his picture, it's just going to be his logo and his graphics. So there's no freezing of the internet. There's no errors. There's no glitches. It's just his voice only. So with that, hello, sir. Good to see you, Infiniteer.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks again for having me on.
Yes, our last episode, we did some good traffic and people seemed to like it, so I thought we should jump in again. We got some people jumping in chat here: Connie, Anthony, Trevon, Cotton Candy, Ramir, and a few others. If you guys are in live chat, feel free to participate. If you guys are watching this on the archive, let us know in the comments below. I'm a little bit ill, so you might hear me sort of cough and sniffle. I apologize, but Infinity Adventures is going to be doing most of the talking, right? Have you cleared your throat? Are you revved up? Infinity Adventures, ready to go with things?
Always when it comes to Disney Infinity. And I hope you feel better. I just got over a cold, so I know how that goes.
Yeah, I went to PlayStation Experience last week, played a few games, got the PlayStation, the PSX nerd flu, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was going to say that nerd flu goes around. You got to be careful.
So, how was this topic? Was this a tough thing? Did you lose sleep over this and dwell? I basically said, hey, here's the premise. Let's pick 5 figures that were never teased. There was no prototype images. It's not like an in-game tease. It was just like, hey, these are figures that could have been, should have been, would have been, maybe would had have been. What was your thought process going into this, the top 5 list?
So it was pretty fun to think about figures that were never rumored or hinted at. There is one on this list that I guess technically could have been hinted at. There was a rumor that this one could have been coming out later, maybe with Disney Infinity 4.0. But the rest of these, I really thought about which ones could they have brought to the game that would have made sense from a marketing perspective, which would have made sense from what people were looking for, and then just a little touch of what I would have personally liked to see. So it's going to be interesting, I think, for people to find out what my personal top 5 should have been. Could have been.
It's kind of a tongue twister there. Should have been, yeah. Could have been, would have been. Some people in chat are mentioning like Peter Pan, Jafar. Those are figures that we talked about in our last video, Finiteers and I discussing the. I think it might have been like a top 5 or top 10 figures that should have come out that we actually knew about. So these are ones that weren't teased, except for maybe one. So, all right, I've explained everything. I've made it clear. Let's get started with the list. I'm excited. I don't have a drum roll. I'm clapping. I'm revving my hands because I'm excited. Plus, it's winter time. I'm a little chilly. So let's start. We're gonna do from number 5 and work our way up to number 1. So let's kick things off.
All right, number 5. So one that I thought about would have been interesting to add into kind of like the arsenal of figures that they had was the Disney Fairies, aka Pixie Hollow. Now, personally, I don't watch a lot of Pixie Hollow and those kind of stories. I love Tinkerbell, but I kind of love her in the context of the old Peter Pan, the original. However, when you start thinking about the marketing opportunities that they would have had, I think Pixie Hollow is really popular among a younger audience, especially a female younger audience, and that's something that I was a big advocate of. I really liked when they added a lot of strong female characters into the game, especially when it came to Marvel and Star Wars. I thought that was awesome. And, they added Tinkerbell, so they were kind of one step there, and a lot of Tinkerbell's movesets and the way that she behaved in the game was kind of based more upon the Pixie Hollow version of Tink, as opposed to the Attitude version of Tinkerbell. Again, my personal favorite from the original Peter Pan. So Disney Fairies, Pixie Hollow, I thought that would have been a really interesting angle to go with, especially when they were looking to expand the game out into new audiences. I know that one's going to be a little bit confusing for some people, but if you think about the amount of their target demo was a young audience, right? And pulling in Marvel and Star Wars added more people that were maybe older gamers or people that really loved those franchises and those IPs. So getting back to kind of your core target demo with Pixie Hollow figures would have been interesting to add, I think.
Okay, okay. I like fairies and flying around. Of course, Tinkerbell is a plus. We already have the Tinkerbell figure. What is the I know one thing about the Disney Infinity platform game was they were trying to promote new and future properties. So what is kind of like the what's going on with the Disney fairies? Do they have a current show or movies like out there?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of stuff. I'm not sure exactly, like, to date what is currently going on with them, but I do know that over the past 3 years, there's been a lot of promotions around that. Like, if you go to Disneyland, for example, you'll see a lot of that everywhere in the stores. And again, it's something that's really a great IP, I think, for Disney and those younger audiences. That would have been really fun to play as in the game too, because like you said, flying around was added in Disney Infinity 2.0. Tinkerbell was also added in 2.0, and I think her character really made a desire for more of those kind of characters, right? Like it would have been really fun to see them expand on that, and really get more of her friends in there.
Yes, yes, have a entourage, her own little entourage behind her there. I see a lot of people dropping some great things in chat. What I'm doing is I'm actually taking some notes. When we finish up with Infiniteers top 5 list, then we'll jump into some of the ones I see popping up in chat. We'll get we'll get some reactions from him as well. So with that, let's go into pick number 4.
Pick number 4. Okay, so this one made my list because of the last playset, Finding Dory, that was added to Disney Infinity 3.0. So if you've played Finding Dory, you would know that they really nailed the underwater mechanics. It was actually one of my favorite playsets throughout the entire series, which is a shame. Again, makes me sad. We've all wept a lot. Series is now over, franchise is now over. But the underwater mechanics really made me want Ariel from The Little Mermaid. This would have been a really fun playset. The fact that in Finding Dory, the way that the underwater mechanics worked, it was fun to go and collect things. And there was actually a point where in the hub world, it was like a 3D environment as opposed to the 2D platforming that the levels were based off of. So when you're in the 3D part, to me, it was really cool to see and experience like being underwater. That to me is just so cool. And I think back to games like Kingdom Hearts, that series where you went underwater and you kind of went down in the kingdom, and it was really cool, but the mechanics weren't quite right. And I feel like with what they did with Finding Dory, a potential playset or even just adding the character Ariel would have been a lot of fun, because I think that's something that a lot of fans wanted as soon as they found out about Finding Dory, because people put 2 and 2 together, underwater. Hey, we want more classic characters, and Ariel would have been a fantastic character to add to the series.
Yeah, totally agree with you on that. The Finding Dory playset was the end of the road, and it was really great with the water and the swimming around with Dory and Nemo there. So yes, Ariel would have been great. It's funny the way you pronounce. I mean, not funny. I shouldn't tease you, but I've never heard the way you pronounce Ariel that way. Have I been saying Ariel wrong all this time? How'd you pronounce it again?
I say Ariel. Some people say Ariel.
Ariel.
It could be, yeah, it could be Ariel, same type of thing. I had a video, the Doctor Strange video, where I accidentally pronounced it Benedict Cumberbatch, and I remember there was a bunch of people in the comment section. I was like, it's tomatoes type of thing, Cumberbatch. So yeah, I might be pronouncing it wrong. She's always Ariel to me, I guess. Ariel? Maybe I can't say that right.
I know for me, I'm a former New Yorker, and Mario and Mario, those are two that, always kind of shift in the way to pronounce them as well there. So, all right, let's move on to choice number 3.
Okay, so this was one that I did not make a video on, but there was a slight rumor that he could have potentially come in the form of a villain, maybe in like a Toy Box Takeover game. I think there was some discussion about him arriving at some point after Peter Pan was chosen. But number 3 for me is Captain Hook. So again, going back to classic characters, this is a little bit of my Peter Pan bias because I'm a huge Peter Pan fan growing up. But he would have been a lot of fun to play as, especially with the way that they introduced the new combat mechanics in Disney Infinity 3.0 with the lightsaber battles. One thing that was really cool about 3.0 is when you had characters, for example, the Tangled character, when you had Rapunzel hit people with her frying pan, in 3.0, they used some of those new combat mechanics to update the way that she fought with a weapon in hand. So it would have been really cool to see Captain Hook kind of fight with a sword in one hand and maybe have his hook in the other. You could have done some fun stuff with like the crocodile, and maybe had some clock type stuff in there. But Captain Hook would have been a really fun character to have, especially after seeing some of the popular villain characters come in the form of some of the characters in 2.0. And again, I think people were really clamoring for more classic Disney characters. And with Peter Pan, oh, so close, Robert, so close. Like we were literally seeing one sold on eBay like a week ago for $1,000, which is crazy because some Peter Pans exist out there. They were in pre-production for quality assurance, quality check. And as you know, that was the Toy Box artist, master artist. They got together and they decided on Peter Pan coming as their pick figure. And they were going to do that every year, which is also really, really cool. So Peter Pan was so close to us. But I think down the line, Captain Hook would have made sense because they like to really kind of go in pairs, if you've noticed how they've released characters in the past. So, yeah, Captain Hook would have been my number 3. And a villain character that I had to put on here because I have a lot of, positive and heroes and heroines.
Yeah, Captain Hook would no complaints there, and what you were saying about people wanting more Disney and originals, Disney proper figures. I think, in the long run, 10 years from now, I think we're all going to agree, looking back, that as cool as it was having Marvel and Star Wars, I think they kind of fell short with limiting kind of the Disney original figures into the game. So, like you said, Captain Hook there would have been a nice addition.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see in chat. Let me pop in chat here. Anthony says, I want DC. I want to DC. That would have been a tough move because DC wasn't owned. Disney doesn't own DC characters. Toy Movie Game Bro says Rogue One. Yes, of course, Rogue One stuff. That's something that I feel was Rogue One. Was that something that we kind of knew that was in the works? There was a Rogue One kind of in the works, right?
Yes, there was. According to the Kotaku article, the original Kotaku article, there was a Rogue One playset coming this December. And it's something I also guessed. A lot of people, when they announced that a Star Wars playset was coming this year prior to cancellation, that was something that I actually called. Because if you looked at the way that they were shifting the marketing strategy for Disney Infinity, it was more of, we're going to release alongside big releases. So Moana would have had a playset and characters, which you've seen on my channel. Rogue One was what I guessed to be the Star Wars one. A lot of people were kind of trying to see if Rebels would get a playset, but I just felt with the success, obviously, of Star Wars Episode 7, Rogue One was the natural kind of, I guess, next step for the Star Wars IP infused into Disney Infinity. So unfortunately, I was never able to see or get any concept art of the Rogue One stuff because I think Disney kept it under, LucasArts probably kept it under a very tight lock key, behind closed doors. But I do know that there was a playset coming for Rogue One, according to the Kotaku article, and I've also heard that from a number of other sources as well.
Yeah, I'm sure LucasArts, they had that in the secret vault there. Let's see, looking over at chat, Robert Jackson says, hey, Rob, do you have the Spider-Man figures? Yes, I have both. And, of course, we had the Spider-Man Homecoming trailer drop this week that looked great. So, again, another, we do have a cool-looking Spider-Man video game coming out from Sony in the future. So, hopefully, that lives up to the movie hype and stuff like that. Let's see, Nerd Tech says, what's going to happen to Disney Infinity games? If you didn't know, the reason why we're doing this topic is because Disney Infinity was canceled earlier in the year. No more figures, no more games, no more playsets coming out. So this is kind of wishful thinking. It's Christmas time, Santa Claus, we're making up our wish list. And this is a video that, we would have put on that wish list. So with that, we've delayed long enough. It's always difficult to pick 2 and 3 coming down the wire. What was some of your decision making? Why, going into, without telling us exactly the first 2 picks there, what was kind of the mindset going into deciding on those 2 figures?
It was really interesting going into the top 2 because I really had to think. And one that I want to bring up that's not my top 2 that I think was kind of an obvious choice. And I know people had discussed this before and I never really thought about it, but how cool would it have been to have a Walt Disney figure come into the game? So, I guess the question then would be like, how would his moveset act? Walt didn't really exactly. Maybe it's like a bunch of magic, kind of like the Sorcerer's Apprentice Mickey, where it's more magic based than anything else. But it would have been really cool to maybe see a Walt figure. But coming down to the top two, I had to really think hard about the game, the gameplay, characters that were very important to Disney, or those Disney-owned IPs, and it was kind of a tough choice because you start looking at a lot of stuff. I know Gravity Falls characters were really popular with the fans, and they wanted to see more of that. But for me, it came down to just thinking about how the game plays, kind of thinking about the worlds that I want to step in, and the two characters that would be very interesting for the Infinity franchise.
Yes, all right, yeah, it's a struggle. And you mentioned Walt Disney. Maybe his powers could have been like some of the characters had like conjuring in other characters. Maybe he could have had like this conjuring of different versions of Mickey and Minnie and Goofy and Donald helping him out as sidekicks and stuff. So okay, well
Totally.
let's get in. I'm tense. I'm excited. I want you to reveal number two.
Number two. Okay, this one's going to be a little controversial, I think, because people are going to have so many of their favorites in there, but I'm going to tell you why I think this would have been important, right? The next character, and let's see if some people in the chat can get this if you're watching this live. This character was actually traded for a real trade for the rights and the likeness to. And he was traded for Al Michaels, the sports broadcaster. So if you know who this character is, maybe type in the chat. I'll give them a couple seconds to guess. But there's a reason why this character is chosen by me. And if you've ever played the game Epic Mickey, this was kind of his big hurrah and return to the Disney lore, I guess you can say. And that is none other than Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. So if you played Epic Mickey, you would know that Oswald was originally going to be basically essentially what Mickey Mouse is to people in Disney today. And the interesting thing about Oswald is the fact that he was gone for so long, they got the rights back to him, and he actually appeared for the first time in some cartoons a couple years ago, and Epic Mickey, which is one of my all-time favorite Disney games, by the way. He returns, and you kind of learn some of his backstory in there, and it's really cool because when you look down Disney lore, there's been so many, and now you can add Infinity to this list, but so many canceled projects or concepts, just tons of stuff that really you could take all that stuff and make a theme park out of itself. But Oswald was really interesting to me, and it would have been really fun to kind of see a black and white version of Oswald. And I know they had some effects in the toy box where you could turn things black and white, and there was like Steamboat Willie type stuff that was infused in Disney Infinity. I think he would have been a really cool character to bring back a very historic, classic kind of animation style to, and bring him in the world of Disney Infinity, especially because he is so new within the last 6-7 years. And he would have been a really fun character, I think, to bring into Disney Infinity alongside Mickey and Minnie and others. It would have been definitely a niche character, right? He wouldn't have been one of the most popular, but I think he would have been one of the most interesting.
Yeah, he would have been definitely a niche character. Maybe even have him as like a store exclusive or limited or something to add a little like buzz factor to him. I wish they would have done like limited edition with numbering on the packaging or something like that. So Oswald would have been a great kind of thing. Let me see over in chat. So he challenged the chat. So Connor says, I'm not sure. Nerd Tekken says Lucky Rabbit. Joshua says Oswald. Toy Move Game Bros. Oswald. Connie. Oswald. Brandon said what? And so we got a few. I'm not sure the timing of the guessing if they guessed that prior because the chat's on delay though. So I'm glad to see people know who Oswald is. Definitely, he's what was he created like in the early 20s or something? What's the Oswald? Do you know what the creation date is? He's early school, right?
Yes, he would have been prior to Mickey Mouse. So yeah, it would have been one of the first things. And like I said, there was a legal battle back in the day, and Walt Disney himself lost the rights to Oswald in a deal that didn't go his way. And then came the creation of Mickey Mouse, or alongside him, maybe in parallel. I'd have to research the exact story. I've seen it a couple times. If you've ever been up to the San Francisco area, you can actually go to the Walt Disney Museum, and they talk about Oswald a little bit in there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, he would have been really interesting, I think, to bring into Disney Infinity, and definitely something like you said, maybe like a D23 exclusive. I know people are going to hate that because they had the King Mickey Power Discs, which didn't go over too well with fans, but I actually I really praise Disney Infinity for the fact that they didn't have too many exclusives. Like we see a lot of really exclusive stuff, limited edition stuff in other franchises, and I think sometimes that upsets fans. But I actually, for Disney being Disney and how much exclusive stuff they do across numerous brands, I'm really shocked that they didn't do more of that. And Oswald would have been like an awesome D23 figure, limited run. Or something like that. Maybe it was like a digital download, and people can get him at a later date or something. There could have been a lot of stuff they could have done with him, but for me personally, I think Oswald would have been a really cool choice to bring to Disney Infinity.
All right, let's see. Reviewing chat. All right, before we get to number one pick here, let's see. Chat. A lot of people are talking about Gravity Falls, Dipper, Mabel. Of course, those are ones we had Power Disc for.
Yep.
And there was a thought that maybe those would come along, but they never did. Of course, Goofy, will forever be missed. We had Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and then Goofy would have been the kind of the what's the I'm trying to think of trifecta in my head, but what's four people? The the classic four or whatever.
The classic, yeah. I've done a video on this. So yeah, there's actually some Goofy concept art on my channel. So if you want to check out that video, you can hop on over. Shameless plug there, sorry. But yeah, Goofy was one that had concept art revealed, and it looks pretty awesome. And I know that they would have loved to bring Goofy in and join the likes of Donald Duck, who was released, Mickey and Minnie, and then at some part maybe we would have got like a Daisy character as well. But Goofy was one that I really thought they missed the opportunity on during 2.0, because they started to bring out some classics towards the end of 2.0, and I really thought Goofy would have been one of them. But those classic characters, man, those always get fans, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and make sure, normally I have the lower third of the person, my guest channel on there, but since it's just Infiniteer's graphic, you just on YouTube, just type in Infiniteer Adventures. I'll put the link to Infiniteer Adventures channel in the description below on the archive. Of course, if you don't know about Infiniteer's Adventures channel, he's got a crazy amount of awesome videos talking about all this concept art and some of these figures that we heard about or were teased, and recaps of things like that. It's almost like an encyclopedia, Wikipedia of the Disney Infinity crusade throughout the years. So somebody else in chat said Fawn, and I put a question mark. Fawn, I don't know Fawn who they're referring to as Fawn. Is that a Disney character that you know of? Fawn?
It's drawing a blank right now, but
yeah, the only thing I can think of Fawn is the fantasy books there. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, there's a character named Fawn. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. Somebody in chat said, of course, Spider-Man Homecoming. Of course, we had Spider-Man figures. A couple people in chat were like X-Men, Fantastic Four. Those would have been tricky to mention. I've got a couple figures for my honorable mention. So you guys are talking. So I would have liked seeing Deadpool. Of course, Deadpool would have been a difficult figure for them to get the licensing to, and kind of a rated R character. So that would have been a tricky one to get. Also, another honorable mention for me is Kermit the Frog. Would have liked to see some Muppets. Was there, from your experience, was there any talk of Muppets figures coming into the mix at all? We had some Power Discs and stuff for the Muppets. Was that something that the developers were ever talking about?
From my understanding, there was a point in time where some Muppets concept art was released. I haven't made a video on some of the 1.0 stuff. That was there was a lot of stuff actually that was released and then later scrapped. So I might start diving into some of the archival stuff and making videos on that and kind of pulling together all the facts. But I know there was some Muppet concept art. And, of course, like you mentioned, some Power Disc stuff. So that would have been cool. And then to some of the other that you mentioned, I know somebody was talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. What I think a big opportunity was missed on is they released these figures. Let's look at Beauty and the Beast for a second, right? And those character concept art that I was able to unveil thanks to sources close to the Disney Infinity Project, those were based off the new live-action film versions of Belle and Beast. It would have been really cool, in my opinion, to release, 2 Power Discs that were costume change Power Discs, which they've had since 2.0, and some of my favorite Power Discs in the game, and make them the classic versions, just make them the animated version. If it's a Power Disc, I think people would have been into buying that, because it's for $5 I can go and actually change this live action Belle that's based off of Emma Watson into the original Belle from the 90s film. And I think that would have been like really popular among fans. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think they missed the opportunity on so many characters. Alice in Wonderland, again, the same thing. I didn't even see the new movie, to be honest, because I just didn't really have an interest in it. But I did like the characters in the game, even though they were based off the live action film. I know that was a controversial subject, but how many people would have rushed out to buy a Power Disc pack of 3 Power Discs that would have changed, or at least 2, because we didn't have time in the original classic. But changing those characters back to their classic animated feel, I think that would have been a really successful way to introduce new Power Discs and really have people invest in them.
Yeah, and with that, also Maleficent would have been another one to change costumes, the classic Maleficent there. So, all right, let's move on here before we've dragged out. Brandon in chat says Genie is number 1, fantastic choice, but unfortunately Genie is not number 1. So, Infinity Adventures, would you like to reveal your number 1 should have been Disney Infinity? This is my I've got a cold, but I'm trying to do my best radio impression voice. So, take it away with number 1.
All right, number 1 is, I'm going to do a little, is that a good drum roll?
Yes.
Okay. Number 1 for me, and hear me out on this because this is going to be controversial, Winnie the Pooh. Now, here's my thing with Winnie the Pooh. It would have made the most epic, awesome playset. And the way that those characters are, I really think it would have made a really fun, interesting playset. Think back to like Kingdom Hearts I think it's 100 Acre Wood. When you go to there in that setting and it's that storybook kind of setting and you're roaming around, I think that's one of the things that a lot of fans of any age really enjoyed about like the Kingdom Hearts series. The fact that you can go and explore these worlds that was, all these IPs that we loved growing up through Disney and the Disney lore. And I remember specifically when you kind of go and you're interacting with the characters from Winnie the Pooh and Kingdom Hearts, it always made me go, man, like that would be so cool to do that or expand on that even more, right? And Kingdom Hearts gave us that opportunity. I thought Disney Infinity would have been the perfect platform to introduce all these characters, especially Winnie the Pooh, even if it was just Winnie. And then you start thinking about like the kind of stuff they could have added to the toy box to give it kind of like a cartoony and original feel to it. It would have been really cool. And that's kind of why I placed Winnie the Pooh at number 1, because of the stuff that you would have been able to introduce into the game. I think some of the coolest things about the game were actually locked away behind Power Discs, and some of them in 1.0 were really hard to get because back in 1.0 they were blind Power Disc packs, so you had to buy them and you really didn't know what you were buying. So there's a lot of people that got like 14 straight duplicates, and that's really frustrating, right? They stopped doing that in 3.0. But I think when you get your hands on some of these Power Discs, like you mentioned earlier, the Muppets had a lot of infusion into Disney Infinity. There was a lot of IPs that maybe didn't have figures tied to them, but they had Darkwing Duck's gun and his bike, right? Like that is so cool that they added all this stuff from Disney lore inside these Power Discs. And when you start thinking about, Winnie the Pooh and those kind of characters, it would have just been really cool to get some of that content inside here.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a fan of Winnie the Pooh. Old school, new school, just charming, and he's great. I'm looking at chat. Somebody said Shrek they would have liked to see. That would have been a tricky one. And somebody said Kevin said they should have made a Hank figure. If you're talking about Hawkeye, Hank, I'm not sure. There was a Hawkeye figure. Is there another popular Hank character in the Disney universe that I'm missing?
Not sure. Yeah, I have to do my research.
Hey, Portal Powers in TV, and he said Portal Power TV is in chat. And he says, "I agree. Winnie the Pooh would have been epic." Toy Movie Game Brew says, "Yes, Winnie the Pooh." So there you go. Maybe it's not controversy. People seem to be agreeing with you. Trevon Yates says, "I wanted him to come as well." Tommy says, "I miss Disney Infinity." Yes, obviously we're making these videos. We miss it. Let me see. Was there anything else I'm missing there? Okay, cool. Oh, Cotton Candy says throwing honey would be cool. So yes,
yeah, exactly.
Fun thing to have Winnie the Pooh throwing honey, out there. So awesome. Well, this was sort of fun. We'll have to think of some more topics. I like making the Disney Infinity videos, even though the game is sort of done. If you guys like, watching this and chatting, I know it's kind of sad, sad panda that, these are things that are never going to exist, but Disney is just this great big giant, endless possibilities kind of thing. So who knows? So what do you got cooking there? You gonna have some holiday cheer videos for your channel on Infinity Adventures or anything like that?
Yeah, so actually, I'm working on a couple things inside, still with Disney Infinity, and then kind of stepping away from Disney Infinity and doing some more classic Disney gaming. You're going to see some of that. But one thing I am working on is top five videos, which is funny because we're doing a top five video right now. So going in and looking at like top five power discs, top five play sets, and really breaking those down. And I'm going to be working with Disney Dan, who I know you've had on your show a few times. He has an awesome channel. Check his stuff out. So we're kind of collaborating on that and sitting down and thinking like, what are the top five stuff? Because these things are always hard to do. It's hard to rank top fives, especially for what people want and the kind of desire behind Disney Infinity. I always thought the strongest thing about that game in particular was you never knew what was coming next, and there was like hints towards things, and then other things were announced, but the possibility of always having more was kind of a really cool narrative to have, and a really cool discussion point to have around the series. So unfortunately it's over, but we can still celebrate it by looking back at some of the best stuff that they had to offer.
Yes, yes, for sure. And we make these videos so that you guys can leave comments. So if you guys are watching this on the archive, let us know what your top five is, or maybe just, top three or number one Disney Infinity should have been, would have been, could have been figures. So make sure you check out Infinitier Adventures YouTube channel. I'll put links to that in the archive. Thanks a bunch, all you Disney Infinity fans, CoinOpTV subscribers. We got more videos coming before the holiday break, so if you guys are new, please subscribe and share this with your friends. I think that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.